So in this video, we're going to talk about meta-analysis. And I want to put a major disclaimer on this video, which is I don't think you should start out going, yeah, I want to do a meta-analysis for this project, because meta-analysis can only be applied in certain research questions and certain situations, and it's very hard to set out and design a meta-analysis study when you have such constrained amount of time and when you yourself are fairly inexperienced in the field that you're researching. So while it is an option on the table, it's not the first one I would recommend to most people. So meta-analysis, like surveys, does a big picture thing. The techniques are a little bit similar to discourse analysis in that it's a lot of critical reading. The difference lies in that you may not be measuring countable features within the text, but rather you might be relying more heavily on your summaries of the text and so on. So in this example, we have an imaginary student named Bobby. And she's doing some research in the databases where she's already designed a research question and she's looking for her secondary sources. And her research question is, what are some effective strategies for learning workplace writing, such as business letters and such? But in the process, she discovers that, well, she thought she wouldn't find a lot about this. There's actually an entire field based on how do we teach practical writing, and it's called technical writing. And they ask a lot of questions that are similar to hers. So she starts looking at similar studies in technical writing, and she finds 7 studies that address how students learn to write specifically business letters. And then she looks at these and she summarizes each one's main point and their recommendations, and she compares them together for points of agreement and disagreement. So the paper that she winds up writing isn't what is the best way for students to master the genre of the business letter, but it's actually what are experts saying about the best ways for students to master the business letter genre. So you see how meta-analysis gets really tricky because you're talking about what you're talking about, what you're talking about. Actually, you're talking about what other people are talking about, what you wanted to talk about. And it requires you to be pretty well read in your field. And it also requires a lot of critical reading of advanced research reports that you may not yet be familiar with. And it requires that there exists a significant body of research on that subject already. So meta-analysis is most frequently done when there's a really popular topic in a given field and we need someone to go through and sort all that information and figure out what is the best of that information that's already available. So you'll see this, for instance, in medicine, for instance, there's a lot of papers on certain cancer treatments. How is a doctor with a patient who has that certain cancer going to decide how effective to expect these treatments to be and what kind of prognosis to give this patient and what kind of treatment to pursue? Are they going to go and read those 30 studies? They could, but it would be so much more helpful if someone would produce one study that summarizes those 30 studies and finds out where those studies are in agreement and what parts are still a little confusing. Or this happens, for instance, when people are looking at things like climate change and they're trying to figure out, okay, so if everyone agrees in the studies, 99% of the papers say climate change is happening, are they agreeing on what the mechanisms are? Things like that. So, and there's a place for meta-analysis, and it may be in your project, but probably only if you start doing your research and you're like, wait a second, this is actually a gold mine of material, and I don't know how I'm going to fit my project, my field work into it. So while it's on the table, I would really discourage you from expecting to do meta-analysis because it is a higher level of research. It's writing about what you want to talk about, and so you're not accessing the phenomenon directly. So I would really prefer for this project that you access the phenomenon directly, whatever it is you are studying. But I recognize that it's very possible that you're going to run into it and go, well, you know what? Someone's already said everything I wanted to say. Someone's already done the study I wanted to do. Can I just talk about what they did? And that's where meta-analysis comes in the scope of this project. In the larger picture, it comes in to help us sort through when we have so much information on a subject that it's hard to know what kind of opinions to draw on that information. So that's meta-analysis.